Not even trying to be funny, but these kids are.
The reality is, most Americans have been reading at a 7th grade level for decades now, and that is by design. Yes, a small percentage of students will be lucky enough to find special programs that help them get the resources they need to go on and graduate and do well. And they'll be set up as examples that the system works, when in reality, the system is set up to fail the vast majority of Americans, so that this country will have a labor force who do not know their rights. And when those students not lucky enough to access special programs graduate into the world where in this country we do not give folks a living wage, they will need to maintain 2 or 3 jobs just to keep their families afloat. So they won't have the capacity to be particularly engaged in their children's educational outcomes. So in this way, the cycle continues. And yes, COVID has absolutely heightened disparities and made things worse. But this country has always ensured that it will have a labor force it can take advantage of.
This is painfully true. When you're teaching your child a language that in that culture is perceived as a predominantly white person language, you're going to get praise. People are going to be like, you're raising your children bilingual. This is amazing. They're going to be so smart. They're going to get better jobs later on. You're going to get so much praise. Maybe a few older people that genuinely grew up at a time period when the scientists at the time were teaching that teaching your child 2 languages would mess them up, right? That would confuse them. But generally speaking, like almost everybody will be super positive. There's been extensive research on bilingual children now, and we know that it is only positive. Teaching your child another language, whatever the language is, even if it's not spoken everywhere, only does positive things for them later on.
Now, in this video, guys, I want to talk about my journey this year learning Spanish, studying Spanish. So I first started visiting Spanish-speaking countries in 2022, 2022. So from 2021 to present day, I have visited Colombia, Puerto Rico, and Cuba. I ended up dating and traveling to Cuba several times. So I've been to Cuba multiple times, and I've been to Colombia and Puerto Rico to make my environment Spanish, Espanol. I started watching TV in Spanish. The majority of the music that I listen to in Spanish, things that I would normally listen to in English, I started listening to in Spanish. Listen to the weather in Spanish. Listening to the noticias in. I went from my whole world being Spanish, everyone around me speaking Spanish, to coming into the States and everyone speaking English again, all of the signs being in English. And then that's when it hit me, like, okay, I had a realization, like, how can I turn my environment into a catalyst to help me learn the language? Because, you know, when I was in Cuba, everything was in Spanish, and I was forced to digest it. What makes Spanish difficult for English speakers is the verb conjugations. So in English, you know, if I want to say that I'm doing the verb generally doesn't change. It's just, is it plural? Is it currently happening? Has it happened, right? We change the suffix. Whereas in Spanish, depending on the pronoun, the suffix of the verb changes. So that makes it a bit more difficult for an English speaker to learn Spanish, right? Bienvenidos a mi canal. In this video, guys, I want to talk about my journey this year learning Spanish, studying Spanish. So I first started visiting Spanish-speaking countries in 2022, 2022. So from 2021 to present day, I have visited Colombia, Puerto Rico, and Cuba. I ended up dating and traveling to Cuba several times. So I've been to Cuba multiple times, and I've been to Colombia and Puerto Rico once. So going to a country where Spanish is the dominant language definitely had a huge impact on me. I would say a positive impact, because I want to discuss this video as an American English dominant and a native speaker learning Spanish, okay? So, one, is Spanish a hard language to learn? Yes. Is it impossible to learn? No. I think what makes Spanish difficult for English speakers is the verb conjugations. So in English, you know, if I want to say that I'm doing the verb generally doesn't change. It's just, is it plural? Is it currently happening? Has it happened, right? We change the suffix. Whereas in Spanish, depending on the pronoun, the suffix of the verb changes. So that makes it a bit more difficult for an English speaker to learn Spanish, right? Two, this year I made a lot of progress in Spanish because I just continued studying. I just continued learning Spanish. And so what I had to do is, once I realized that I had to make my environment Spanish, Espanol, I started watching TV in Spanish. The majority of the music that I listen to in Spanish, things that I would normally listen to in English, I started listening to in Spanish. Listen to the weather in Spanish. Listening to the noticias in Espanol. And that really had a positive impact on me. Also learning how to say basic things in Spanish went a long way. Like if I have an English start, I think about how could I say that in Spanish, or, you know, using translator, books. I have this book right here, which has been a huge help. I haven't actually studied really hard in this book because I've been busy, but this is an example of things that I use. I use a plethora of resources. An online course I have called Rocket Language. I talk to Maya Moore. We talk and text in Spanish all the time. And she's also a person I have emotional feelings for, but also a friend. So having someone that I could talk to in Spanish helps a lot. I also have a friend from Colombia, and social media. I started following people on social media who were in my position that was an English speaker and they learned Spanish. And so I follow them. I also follow pages that's noticias that's in Espanol. I made sure that the majority of the music that I consumed was in Spanish. And that was really like the turning point this year. I would say like 2 years ago, I was in a position where I could read Spanish pretty well. Like I started being able to start to understand how to read it. Now I can read it, make a video reading Spanish, and the next stage I'm working towards is just being able to just fluently speak. I have made videos where I just speak in Spanish, but since I'm still learning the conjugations, I know it's not 100% grammarly correct, and I understand that, and that's a part of learning too. Another thing I would say is I was in Cuba one time, and I stayed in Cuba for like 3 weeks. I came back to the States, and I went from my whole world being Spanish, everyone around me speaking Spanish, to coming into the States and everyone speaking English again, all of the signs being in English. And then that's when it hit me, like, okay, I had a realization, like, how can I turn my environment into a catalyst to help me learn the language? Because, you know, when I was in Cuba, everything was in Spanish. and I was forced to digest it. And when I got back to the States, that's the hardest thing I would say. Number 3, the hardest thing about an English speaker learning Spanish is that English is so dominant in the States. And if you're Latino, you probably won't realize how much of a benefit it is to have people around you that speak your native language, that speak Spanish. Whereas when you're an English speaker, I don't have a lot of friends in the United States who speak Spanish. So all of my friends, except for maybe a few, speak English. So I'm forced to have to go out of my way to get that input, And the hardest thing is, it's so easy to revert back to just speaking English because it's easier. The harder thing is to learn Spanish. And so I'm going to continue practicing, continue learning. I've gotten negative comments, like I post some videos like, ha ha ha, you sound funny, your pronunciation, your accent, but I wonder, like, if they understand how difficult it is to actually learn. Like, when you're learning, no one starts off learning and they're up here. It's a process. But then I've also gotten positive reviews like, oh, you're very intelligent. I'm so proud of you. Keep going, keep practicing. And I always try to use the negative comments as motivation, but I also use the positive comments as motivation too. You know what I mean? But honestly, I think that the way that Spanish is taught in school is the reason why a lot of people don't learn Spanish. In school, it's pass or fail. In life, you have to fail in order to perfect your craft. You have to make mistakes. So in school, the reason why a lot of people are not going to do well in school trying to learn the language is if you miss a verb, if you're not understanding something, the teacher most likely is going to fail you. And so you think, oh, I can't learn this. But in life, when you make a mistake, that's actually you learning, because you're learning what not to do and you're learning how to do it. And then never be afraid to ask, come on, deserte, like, puede repetir, habla despacio, learn how to tell a person, like, hey, how do you say this? Can you speak slowly, and things like that. Can you repeat it, Don't be afraid to tell a person that you're still learning, like, todavía aprendiendo, like, I'm still learning, that kind of because you have some negative Nancy's out there that's we live in a society of, unfortunately, people like to tear people down instead of build people up. Like, social media is a place where most people are going to belittle you instead of lift you up. That's just like human nature, I guess. So don't take the negative stuff too serious. And as far as me, my goal for 2027, getting into 2027, is to really get my fluid game up where I could speak and be understood. I could listen and understand. And I've reached a point now where the other day I was talking to someone and I said estaba instead of saying estuvo, and it made me realize, like, oh, I realized I made a mistake. Like, you know what I'm saying? So you start to realize, like, as you're learning, like, oh, I should have said this, but I said this. Like, that's it kind of sucks sometimes, but that's when like, you're learning. When you could self-correct, you know more than what you previously knew, right? And I would say two of the biggest things is three: listening, writing, speaking. And then, listening, writing / reading, and speaking. We have to speak in the new language. We have to. And I know that's so hard for people that's learning the language because we sound funny. It's not new to us. We might mess up. People may make fun of us. Listen, I don't care. I'm learning Spanish because that's what I want to do. I'm not learning Spanish because someone else told me to learn it. So that's really it. A few of my favorite artists that I like to listen to in Spanish is, I like a lot of artists from Puerto Rico, Colombia, Cuba, Republica Dominica, different places. But Ozuna, Omar Courtz, Satcho, artists like that, like new, a mix of like, you know, some from a decade ago, some now. I like my new favorite artist that I like to listen to. I like his Barondo album is Biele from Colombia, Barranquilla. And I've been to Cartagena, so like that was dope. I found him. I think that his album was the best album, or my favorite album this year that I liked. So that's my review. And if you made it this far.